So we are going to do some short presentations on Live 11, some time for questions. Andrew has an idea for some like weekly or monthly challenges for the group, writing challenges for the group that he'd like to discuss with us. And then, maybe we'll take like just a 2-minute bathroom break. And then Lillian is going to show us some tips on how to make some pop bangers. So that is how it's going to go today. Sound good? Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna take us away with Live 11 stuff. So my plan is to kind of go over some of the like more basic new additions. I'm gonna cover comping, which probably everyone's really excited about, and some of the just like kind of like the biggest stuff coming out, so that when you get your new version, you know how to use all this stuff right away. Like I said, I'm recording. I'll throw this video up on YouTube. I'll put it in our Facebook group so that you guys have already like instructions on how to use this stuff right when you get your new version. Also, if you don't know whether you want to get the new version, this is a great day to figure it out. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, so hold on. We have something in chat. Oh, just BRB. That's all right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Does it cost to upgrade to 11? Yes, it does. It will be not like buying the whole version. Usually it's like $200 or something like that. They also have like a deal right now where if you have, there's a couple different versions of Live. So there's like Intro, which is the kind that's like $99. It comes a lot of times with free with like interfaces and things like that. There's Standard and there's Suite. If you have Intro or Standard and you upgrade to Live, right? If you upgrade to Suite right now, which is comes with the most stuff, then you get Live 11 for free when it releases, right? You just automatically upgrade to Live 11. So that is also an option. But yes, you do have to pay for Live 11. They usually do updates, they'll be like 11.2, and those are free. So Live 11 should be your version for years, hopefully. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of time between 10 and 11, which I thought was a little strange, but it's all right. The new features are really worth it this time, I think, and you will get free updates before Live 12 comes out, which will probably not be for a couple years, so it's a good investment to make. Sweet. Okay, let's do this. All right. Here we go. Okay, so I'm just starting with a blank set here. The first thing I'm going to do is just get some drums going for us and talk about the new macro knob situation here. So I'm just going to kind of teach for a like more intro level, not total intro because we're going to kind of get through some stuff quickly. But yeah, so here we're in arrangement view. I'm going to just create a new clip on my drum track by just highlighting some space in the grid here, and I'm going to hit Command Shift M. It's Control Shift M if you're on a Windows computer. And then here we've got my drum rack. So you can see things look a little bit different. We'll talk about some of the controls. I'm just going to get going with a beat. Let's change the tempo. And let's put something down here. So if you want to hear the sounds as you're entering notes, MIDI notes in, you can turn on this little headphone icon right here. Let me turn on my little mouse thing, which will let you see the notes. So now when I enter a note, I'm going to hear it. Did you guys all hear that, by the way? Okay, great. Just making sure. All right, so we're gonna make some kind of beat here. Cool. I'm going to highlight that, duplicate it, Command D, move it over. Let's add some hats. Whoa. Okay. Nice. I'm going to change my grid to something a little bit quicker maybe. Just add a little roll here. Take out these two. Sweet. So I'm going to use the piano keys here to highlight this entire... Wow, this is a crazy drum rack. I'm going to use this piano key here to just highlight all my hats. You can see now the velocity and probability section down here. Things look a little bit different. I'm not going to get super far into this section here, but you can see probability used to be those little red lines, right? And so now they look a little bit different. I'm just going to drag all these down so our hi-hats aren't so crazy loud. Nice. All right, we got a little drum beat going on here. let's loop this. So I'm going to highlight these 2 clips and hit Command L. So we're just looping my little drum clip. And now, so over here, this is a drum rack that came from one of Live's packs. And we've got a bunch of macros. So macros are just like these big knobs that are assigned to parameters on devices. So you can make some quick, like cool effects on here. So if I'm working with the drums, I've got a filter knob, got a delay. Right, and so these have always been there if you wanted to use them, but now we've got this really awesome new feature called snapshots. So over here on the left side, there's this new icon. It looks like a little camera. And when I hit this, we get a section called macro variations. So basically, I can create any combination of like, you know, any position of all these knobs and save it, which is super cool. So let's say I just wanted to save like a filtered version. So I'm just going to turn on the filter. Let's turn on this delay too. It's kind of dope. Cool. So like, yeah, I like that sound a lot. I want to remember where these are so that next time I use this drum rack, I don't have to like remember these exact settings or find it again. So once I find like positioning of my macros that I like, I'm just going to hit new. And now it saves it as variation 1. And now another super fun thing that we have going on here is this random button. Right? So I can hit random and it's going to just totally randomize all the knobs. So once I find another one that I like, the overdrive is a little crazy. Once I find one that I like, I can save another one. And now when I want to recall that, I just hit the play button and you can see it's switching the knobs so that it goes to the variation that I saved. So this is super cool, and you can do this with, I'm doing it with a drum rack that was already created. You can do it with your own audio effect racks, of course, that you build yourself, which is awesome. And then the other cool thing about this, the macros, is that you can now adjust how many you have. So by default, it was always 8 before, whether you were using them or not. And now we've got these plus and minus buttons here, and I can add up to 16. Yeah, baby. I'm so excited about that. And also, if you don't need all of them, you can go down to just 1 or 2. So it's just like cleaning up the interface. It's really cool. I'm really excited about just that feature itself. So sweet. So that's the macros. Let me just, okay, I've got to admit a couple people. Let me check the chat for questions. So do those variations save the way presets do or just part of the instrument? Yeah, so if you wanted to then save these presets, you can save this drum rack, right? So I can just hit this save button right here and save this as like, you know, Mari, it's my version. It's called the Candler Kit. Like I said, it was from an Ableton pack, but I could save it there and then it'll always come up with those variations saved inside of it, which is pretty baller. Are those play buttons on the variations MIDI mappable? Yes, they are. There we go. So the one thing, I'm hoping they add this, but as of now, I don't think you can automate the changes, which is something that I'd be interested in having them do for sure. But you can MIDI map them. So you just hit Command M, everything that is MIDI mappable turns this like purple blue color, and I can click that and you know, map it to some controller if you want. So yeah. And you can see here too, check this out. Actually, I didn't even know this until just now because of that question. When you go into MIDI mapping mode, you can see there's also these up and down buttons that you can map to a controller too, which is really, really cool. That's awesome. Nice. So you can move up and down also. So it's similar to how like it works over here with how when you go into MIDI mapping mode here, you can use the scene selector to go up and down, and then you like hit play to actually select that scene. So it works exactly the same here with the macros. Cool. Good question. What else? Can you rename the variations? Yes, you can. So I can go filtered, rename, I don't know, squashed, something like that. Yes, you can rename them. Cool. Good questions. Nice. All right. So do these variations are the, no, I already answered that one. That was Chelsea. Cool. All right. So yes, you can rename things. You can MIDI map things. Awesome. All right. Let's move on. Okay. So I'm going to, there was already a drum rack on there apparently. Cool. So let's go add some chords to this. So I'm going to grab the wavetable, drop it on here. And I'm grabbing the wavetable purposely because it's MPE. It's an MPE device. So this is a new feature. Chris is going to get more into MPE. I'm just going to touch on it like really briefly. But so MPE is MIDI polyphonic expression. Basically, it's just like a whole new bag of tools to make MIDI way more powerful. I'm just going to demo one part of it, and we'll also show some new devices with this. So I'm going to create a new MIDI clip. And we'll talk about sort of the differences in MIDI editing, which are actually really, really awesome this time. So first off, for all my music theory people who have been not pleased that forever in live you've only been able to use sharps, that's me. It drives me absolutely bonkers. So you can right click now on the piano roll and you can change it to sharps, flats, sharps, and flats. So now if I click flats, you can see when I hover over it to the left of my cursor, it says G flat. So I'm really excited because A sharp is not a real key to me. So, all right. So on top of that, we can also select a scale to work within, which is really helpful, especially if, again, for those of you who like maybe music theory is not totally your thing, this is going to make your life a lot easier. So things look a little different on this side, right? We used to have different boxes and the show hide buttons were down here in the lower left corner. So now we've got the clip box on the left. Our loop position is here, loop button here. Our clip length positioning is here. We've got our key, time signature. The groove is here. Kind of everything is similarly placed in this section. And we have this new added scale feature. So check this out. When I hit scale, it's going to highlight the notes that are in the scale that I have selected. And the other thing that it's going to do too is pick sharps or flats correctly. So if I go to C minor uses E flat, right? So now we see E flat instead of D sharp, even though I didn't go in and change it, right? You have to have it on auto for that. Auto means it'll choose the right one, right? So let's go ahead and we'll work with C minor. And I'm going to just create a C minor 7 chord. Nice little trick. Holding down the Option key on Mac, Alt for Windows people, you can Option drag, and it duplicates the note, and you can drag it up. So here we go. Let's turn down those drums. They're cracking. Okay, sweet. All right, so now we've got a C minor chord. Let me get rid of the info view here so I have some more room. And then you'll see over here on the to the right of the clip stuff, we've got now our boxes, kind of how they were before, are now here as tabs. So this is my notes box where we get all our regular MIDI manipulation stuff. We've got automation and we've got MPE. And MPE is the new thing, which is super cool. It says early 2021. Oh, yeah. It's probably January, Tyler, is when the version is going to come out. Yeah. So awesome. So we've got our C minor chord. I'm just going to show one cool MPE thing here, which is that you can pitch bend individual notes, which is so fun. So instead of writing a chord change, I'm just going to pitch bend the notes a little bit. So we're going to go from like B flat to F. I'm going to click on G, go from G to maybe C. And it does get a little crazy because the notes are highlighted. It's like hard to see which one is which. We're going to go down to maybe A flat. And then our last note, C, I'm going to take up to F or something like that. Okay, cool. And then let's get out of this, and now let's check that out. Sweet. I'm going to change this wave a little bit. Nice. Dope. So I'm going to duplicate this. And then just to change it up a little bit, I'm just going to take this top note down an octave, holding down Shift, hitting the down arrow on my keyboard. And now we've got a little variation there. So here we go. Sweet. All right. So in the wavetable synth, I know, isn't that fun? Loving this option so hard. Yes. Cool, cool. So on the wavetable synth, we do have like a pretty cool chorus effect here, right, that we can use. Sounds amazing. But I just want to show you guys under audio effects, we've got a new chorus device. Thank God. So we have our audio effects are now divided into folders. So you will definitely not find everything at first. This has been like for me, I'm like, where is everything? So the audio effects are now in folders instead of just all listed out. And so I think it's under pitch and modulation. We've got new chorus effect. It's called Chorus Ensemble. And if you, right, Live 10's chorus device is pretty limiting. And in my personal opinion, not the best sounding chorus. I end up using like Sound Toys Microshift a lot or something like that because I'm just not crazy about the way it sounds. I think the new chorus sounds pretty awesome. So let's turn this down a little bit too. Oh, sorry. Did someone?
I don't know. Maybe because I missed it.
Yo, can you put yourself on mute?
Oh.
No worries. Thanks. Cool. So we have a couple different options here. It's pretty simple, so I'm not going to get too into it. But classic ensemble just adds one more layer, and vibrato gives you one layer, so it gives you kind of a wobbling effect. So here, you can turn up the rate and the amount. Pretty cool. And there's also this warmth knob, which just adds some like filtering and saturation, so it sounds a little bit warmer, which is cool. I'm a big fan of the vibrato. I think it's really funny. Like, it's like Pac-Man. So some cool options with the new chorus device. And then we've also got a new reverb called Hybrid Reverb. And it is a mix of convolution reverb and an algorithmic reverb. So the convolution part, if you use the convolution reverb in the Max for Live devices, if anybody uses that's a great reverb. They've kind of taken it and made it just a native live device, which is really awesome. So let me just solo this out for a sec. Here, you can pick which one you're using. So basically like this half is convolution. This half is algorithmic. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, convolution reverb is, it's just a type of reverb that digitally simulates the real reverb of an actual place. So you'll see down here, you have like real places or halls, and I can pick a hall, and it's just like digitally recreating the reverb of that real space, which is super cool. Whereas like algorithmic is basing things off of like time, like how long it takes for the sound to diminish and, you know, early reflections and things like that. So a little bit different. So you can just pick one or the other. So I can just say, I just want to use a convolution reverb, or in which case it turns this part off. I just want to use the algorithmic reverb, which just turns this on, that off. Or you can use them in parallel or serial. So like the convolution going into the algorithmic, or both of them at the same time blended together, which is super cool. Has a great sound. The algorithmic also has a couple different options. I think the shimmer is super cool. You can hear that kind of like high pitch. Super dope. And then we also get this cool freezing option, which is like anywhere that I click this freeze button, it's going to freeze the reverb, which is super cool for like resampling purposes. So if I hold this down, so obviously there's nothing playing here, it's just holding it out. And I could like grab the audio from that channel, just start recording it. And now I have some super cool like ambient reverb sounding stuff to work with. And you do have to turn it off again, otherwise it will continue on forever. All right, sweet. So new devices. All right, let's get into comping and then I'll wrap up. It's gonna be my last thing. So I'm gonna add a new MIDI track here. Let's get rid of these for now. Let's throw on a bass sound. Sure. Okay, so I'm gonna record. I've got my keyboard right here. You can sort of see I've got a keyboard. I'm just gonna record in a couple takes of like a bass line. And let's just loop this first few bars, 2 bars. It's always tough recording on Zoom because there's a ton of latency. I don't really want to go higher than that because I'm worried I'll crash. So, all right, it's just gonna sound like I'm playing really late. Just deal with it. Here we go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this to loop. I'm just gonna let it loop. I'm gonna record a couple times and it will look like I'm recording over my previous material, and then I'll show you kind of how it works. Let's just say show take lane. So I'm gonna right click on my track, show take lanes, and I think that will make it show them actually as I'm playing, which will be hopefully a helpful visual. So I just let it run, and you can see now it's populated all of my different takes. Let's just delete the last one because it was I just didn't stop it in time. And so now I'm going to, just for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to color all, and you could do this too. Like I would recommend doing this. So you keep them different. I'm just going to color, just right clicking, and I'm just going to change the color of the different takes so that it's a little easier for me to keep track of when I'm doing my comp. I'm gonna zoom in here. All right, so first of all, we can listen to the different lanes by hitting these little microphone or speaker buttons. So now, so that way you can just listen to the whole take. And then if you want to actually, like, let's say I really liked my, like this take. If I want to use this one, I just click it and hit enter. Didn't the original reverb also have a freeze button? I don't know. Someone on the forum is going to be real upset about that little freeze button, right? I know. I don't know. Maybe it did, but I don't think so. I mean, the original reverb is still here too, by the way. It's not replaced. It's in addition. So I don't remember there being a freeze button, but you could be right. Okay, so you just click on the take if you want it, and you just hit enter on your keyboard, and it replaces the original take or the comp, right? It will redo it. So, and then of course you can take different sections, which is really the whole idea of this. So if I want the first part of this take, I'm just going to highlight, hit enter. If I want the next part of this take, enter. And now you can see why the colors is kind of nice, right? So boom, boom, nice. So now we've got comp of different things. The other cool thing is that you can use draw mode in here. So if I hit B on my keyboard, the letter B, you can see my cursor turns into a pencil. You can also use this button up here to do that, but keyboard shortcuts are definitely good to learn. And now I can just draw. Yes. And so if you're a vocalist and you're trying to get like really specific little, in between breath or like, in between phrases or something, I would highly recommend like taking off the grid. And then you can just make really detailed little edits here, right, for your comp. So it's really awesome. And then you can just right click and uncheck show take lanes. And there's a shortcut for it too, right? Option Command U. I spent countless hours doing this recording for super long MIDI. Yep. I know. We all have in Ableton for sure. So then you can just get rid of the take lanes. And now I have my beautiful comp. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to show is just super quick trick here. If I want to edit multiple clips at once, that's also an option now. So let's say I want 1 and 3. I want to like edit them together. So I'm going to just select those two. I'm just holding command clicking, right click, link tracks. And now you can see they've got this little link icon there, and then like anything I do to one track, it's going to do to the other one as well, right? So if I'm deleting stuff or bringing it back, you can see they're both editing together, which is super cool. And then you can unlink the tracks as well. Questions? That was a lot in a super short amount of time. Hope that was clear. Does the link track thing work? Like, yes, but like if you, I don't know, in my experience, the grouping never really worked the same. So like, for example, if I group these two, if I edit this one, it doesn't edit the other one, right? I still have to select both, or I can like select it up here. So this way you could link like a group. You know, I don't know. It's just a cleaner way to do it, and you can select like things in multiple different groups and stuff like that. Like if you add effects, no, not if you add effects, no. I
Mari, I
imagine.
do have a question about the comping.
Sup.
So when I do vocals, I will record the entire song like 12 times and then I'll listen to like every like phrase and pick out my favorites and I'll do like, okay, here are my like top 4 favorite takes of that. So I'm not sure when I'm like first going through my comps which one I want the final one to be. Is there a way to do like next best or like marking, like flagging something as to check out later?
Let's see. I mean, you can name all these.
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure. I guess I'm not exactly sure what you mean by flagging it for later.
So like say the first like 2 bars, I'm like, "Ooh, there are like 3 that I
Oh.
really like," and I'm not
Oh,
sure which one's
oh.
gonna make the final cut.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I'm
I
not sure.
probably
I'd have to think that through.
I could just color them differently, which is what I have.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe using the color would be the best way to go for now. I don't know if there's a way to flag just little sections, but that's a really good. I'm gonna write that down because that's a really good request actually.
Maybe you could eliminate the ones you don't want by just deleting sections from them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because you
I
could always
do that too, but then sometimes I'm like, "Oh, fuck,
like
I know
maybe
that
I
one sucked,
wanted
but I need
it.
to read it now."
Yeah, or like you're like, oh, I could have used a double really bad or something like that.
Or I'm
So
like,
yeah,
"Not bad, I guess I'll use it in my final project."
yeah. Oh, and the other thing too, guys, is that you don't have to do the looping to get a take lane. Like you can insert a take lane as well. Just right click, insert, use the keyboard shortcut if you want. So I showed the looping way, but if you're just like recording a vocalist and you just want a bunch of takes, you could just load up a bunch of takes and record in them that way. Yeah? Sweet. All right. Cool. So, some cool new stuff. Think if there's no more questions, I'll just pass it off.
I had one last question. So if you're doing takes that way, the last way you described, do you have to record enable them or will they just automatically arm?
They will automatically arm. Like it's not going to overwrite the original
Okay.
track.
Cool.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I find that like the way the comping works is pretty intuitive. Like I didn't even think about that when I was doing it. It just like kind of worked the way I expected. So hopefully it'll be pretty easy for everyone to pick up.
I had a question about the MPE.
Uh-huh.
It looked like when you were dragging those notes, you had the option of dragging it to a certain number of cents above or below. Does it snap to a grid to be just the correct pitch, or do you have to be real careful?
You have to be careful.
Oh,
I think
bummer.
it actually does snap to the whole number. But I saw in a video someone had it snapping, and I feel like there's a way to do it, and I just don't know it yet. So
Cool.
I'll get back to you on that.
I can answer that. There
Chris.
is yes, I'll go over that in
Perfect.
the section after Andrew does his spiel. There are some options.
Cool. Sweet. All right. Cool. Andrew, you want to take it over?
Sure. All right. Let's see here. I'm gonna share my screen. Actually, let's see. I'm gonna do my whole desktop. Okay. All right. So I'm going to talk mostly about randomization, probability, chance, and some of the new functionality that Live has with 11 today. And my name's Andrew Luck. I'm a certified trainer from the Seattle area. All right. So why should we randomize things, or what is the value of that with music? So you could think of automating randomization kind of like a new band member who doesn't drink too much or show up late to all your gigs. It can really help you get past some creative blocks you can by discovering like unconsidered possibilities, and you're like collabing with your computer. Um, and you can also help you get that live, more humanized feel, which we'll take a closer look at today, and ultimately just give you more expression. So let's get a little bit nerdy, because randomization has like a pretty cool history in music. So in academia, this is called like stochastic or semi-stochastic music. And actually, randomization or like mutations are evolutionary, part of our evolutionary algorithm of like natural selection. So you could just think of yourself as like playing God while you mutate your music with randomization and choosing which notes get to live on in the future. So modern composition has a bunch of composers that have used this concept of randomization amongst players. Terry Riley's in C is kind of an example of that, and he's a composer that has used randomization quite a bit. And there's all kinds of musical games where you can even like network and perform together. Another example of randomization in contemporary music is Brian Eno's Oblique Strategies deck. It's a deck of cards, and like the idea is like if you get stuck on something, you can pull one of those cards and it'll give you some kind of oblique strategy or idea on how to solve a problem or move on to your next thing. So mostly to help get past those creative challenges. Okay. Oh yeah, and then I also want to say that randomization is also sort of like a seed of primitive AI or machine learning. And so Google Magenta is this sort of monolithic AI for art and music code base that Google has created. And there are some Max for Live devices that use that as well. So yeah, and then if you want to learn more, if you want to go super deep in this, there's a couple really good classes on Cadenze called Generative Art and Computational Creativity. And it's by this amazing professor from Simon Fraser University who goes super deep in some of these like primitive AI data structures and algorithms. And he uses Max as well. So if you've gotten started with Max and you know the ins and outs of it a little bit, it's probably doable. But if you don't know Max, you can also learn that on Cadenze as well. So this is a whole like field of music, and it's exciting to me that Ableton's bringing that into Live 11 even more. But randomization existed before Live 11 also. You could randomize follow actions. There's such a thing as like a noise envelope in a lot of soft synths, and it has this sort of like random looking crazy modulation in the waveform abstraction that shows up in the synth, because noise is just really a random bunch of frequencies playing all at the same time. So there's also a really cool velocity MIDI effect that lets you set randomization of the velocity and within a threshold. So you can sort of intercept your MIDI messages or maybe some recorded or looping MIDI messages, and you can randomly treat them with that velocity MIDI effect that still exists in Live. And that's really cool because you can actually map the velocity parameter to things like filter cutoffs and all kinds of stuff, especially in Operator. So what's cool about Live 11 is that you can get more, it has more dimensions, meaning you can actually get really specific about each note and drum pattern or whatever it is that you want to randomize, and we're going to take a look at that. So Max for Live, you can actually break down a noise signal and convert it to numbers and create your own random music generator if you want to. So and there's a plethora of other Max devices as well that use randomization. Okay, so let's jump in and take a look at some things. So I'm going to start from like a really high level of musical concepts. And I'm going to decompose ideas instead of sort of starting from scratch like Mari did and building a track. So I'm going to jump over here to live. And first, we're going to talk about the ability to automate these scene launches. And because Live 11 lets you create follow clips, which have randomization functionality. And so this differs from previous versions of Ableton Live because you could only automate groups of clips to follow. And so what that means is you can actually say, you can go into the settings here and you can make it say, after you play one bar, go to the next clip or go to a random clip in any one of these groups. So now what you can do is you can actually create high-level automation follow clips in scenes with randomization, where these clips are actually a subset of like these clips in session view are actually a subset of behaviors that lie underneath these arrangement follow actions. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that quickly here. So you can see the next scene is scheduled to trigger, and it will coming up in just a couple more bars. So this group of clips has actually started to play now, and this at the end of every cycle, this plays a fill and it switches to one of these clips. But I've also got it scheduled when it finishes this set of 8 bars to go to this next scene. So you can basically, you could put randomization and follow actions inside of your follow actions now. So you can get really, you can program this so that it's like incredibly, detailed or improvisational, and you can use this in your live performances so that you can jump in and take over for it, and you can basically automate, the original composition that you might have laid out in an arrangement. But you can do it all here, and you could also throw in possibilities with randomization. So that's like taking a look at like a high level of like what you can do with scene clips and follow actions. So the next thing I'm going to take a look at is on the clip level itself. So there's actually a drum loop in here that I was feeling like it was a little too static, and I wanted it to be a little bit more dynamic and have a little better feel. So those are our hi-hats there. And I was feeling like, this intro, I was trying to build the tension with lots of repetition, but at the same time, it needs some variation. So I think what I want to do is actually give the velocity of these congos, so a little bit more variation. So let's hear that again. So what I'll do is I'm going to tap that note to select all of those congos. I'm actually going to bring, and then I went over to my velocity range here, and I can actually change the dynamic range of that velocity. And so the velocity will land somewhere in between here, based on whatever random possibility that happens. So let's go ahead and play that back. And that's not a super obvious sound. I think the other sound that I would like to do that similarly with is the hi-hats as well. So I'm going to give those a little bit more of a velocity range too. And hopefully what this will do is give us a little bit more of a live feel with those programmed drums. Okay, So it's not a great example dynamically, but I can hear it, the subtlety just a little bit. And so I want to take a closer look at how I created these drum loops. So I started off with these loops here, and I wanted to create one main loop. So I'll go ahead and play that. Stop these. So this was the main beat that I created, and then I actually ended up, it actually followed and jumped to the other beat. But this was the first beat that I created, and it has a lot of different hi-hats and different components to it. But what I ended up doing is I broke it down into 5 other clips. Well, actually, the first thing I did was I added some of this variation. So this is the same loop, but you can see that I've got some probability in here. And what I've done is I actually ended up, so I'll select all of these drum hits. And if I hit randomize, it'll give me a different, basically a different groove or a different velocity for each of the hits. So I started by finding one of those that I liked. And then I ended up taking that same beat and just subtracting from it. So these other beats that I'm switching between are actually versions of that original beat, but just with less hi-hats or less fills. And what happens is this first one is the whole thing. And then at the end of every couple bars, it actually switches over to these others to create a little fill pattern. And it switches randomly between those. So just using that randomization with that sort of live composition. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the velocity, and now we'll look at like the note probability that you can also have. So this is actually a really short, this is a 1-bar loop. And one of the other things that I did here is I adjusted the probability and the probability lane for each one of these notes. So essentially, that kick drum will actually only play back 78% of the time. So there's a unique probability distribution for each one of these hits, meaning that statistically, each one of them has their own value for the possibility in which it'll play back every time it loops. And so it's this really multi-dimensional and granular approach to applying probability and randomization to playback. So I was really stoked about this because I was able to take this 1-bar loop and get a lot of mileage out of it, especially when I started to take control by decomposing it, breaking out into clips, and then deciding like when it might switch up to create those little fills and stuff. So Live 11 is pretty cool for that. Okay, so actually, Mari talked about this a little bit, but you can also use effects racks to apply randomization for your mappings. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this loop. So that's just our little guitar chunk, and I can randomize this. And so this is really awesome because you can actually, you can set as many of these parameters up here as you want. And like, I think in Mari's example, one of the distortions was kind of getting out of control, but what's kind of cool is that you can actually control click or right click on that. And you can actually remove that mapping actually, let's see here. There's a way you can actually, you can exclude it from randomization. That's the button. So if there's something that you want to leave in here, like maybe you need access to it on your push controller, but you don't want it to randomize whenever you're just generating your ideas, you can exclude that, which is pretty cool. All right, so And then finally, you can also capture all of these ideas either in session mode, or you can dub it into your arrangement view. So something kind of cool where you generate ideas that I heard from like a techno producer a long time ago is he would set up all of these randomization and probabilities, hit record and go for a jog, and come back and then mine out the good ideas. So that's a lazy way to make music if you want to. So I'll just demonstrate real quickly how you can dub that. You can dub that into a lane. So I'll create a new MIDI track, and I'll go over here to my ins and outs. So I just want to show where I'm taking that those MIDI messages from. And I want them from track 1, my 808. And so what I'll do, if I want to record this little session here, is just hit record. And I'm capturing all of those events as they are randomized with the velocity and the probability of happening in real time. So we can take a look, and if I want to play that back, I could bring it back over to my 808, and I'm like, okay, this is the one I want. And really, this is all generated from a single bar clip, so 1 bar. Okay, so those are some of the new ways to take advantage of randomization and probability. There's a bunch of cool videos on this on YouTube. Tom from Elephant, I believe he's out of the UK, he's a certified trainer as well, has done a number of videos on generating ideas in previous versions of Live. If you want to dig in and get more information about how you can actually use probability as your well-behaved bandmate, feel free to check out those videos or the Cadenze class, or post some questions to the forum, the Ableton User Group, and we'll be happy to help you out. So, yeah, that's it for me today.
Awesome, thanks. Man, pro tip with the don't include in the randomization. I didn't know that. That's really awesome. Cool. And yeah, I'm really excited that you can now control whole scenes. It was always a kind of a pain in the butt that you couldn't do that before. So that is a really good thing.
Yeah, the one that I guess I'd never discovered this. I've used follow actions quite a bit, but there's this other one called jump, and used to be that you were limited to the groups of clips, and so if you would have to trigger it manually to get to the next group. But now you can actually jump to any clip in the column, and you can set the number. So it's really super extensible and robust as far as like what's possible now. And I think that an exciting way to do it is to approach it maybe like write your song in arrangement, then break it out into your performable clips, or maybe just like break it out into loops to take back into arrangement after that. And then you can experiment with the different possibilities of arrangements and, sort of automated remix like that.
Love that. Very cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks, Andrew.
No problem.
All right,
Thank you.
Chris, you want to take us through MPE, and then we'll take a short break, and then Lillian will be up.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, can everybody hear me? Sweet. Cool. So before I dive into a demo, I'll just talk a little bit about MPE, and then we'll actually share my screen and we'll go into it. So yeah, Mario already touched on MPE a little bit, and there was a question about, is MPE MIDI? And it is. Actually, MPE stands for MIDI Polyphonic Expression. And the whole reason why this came out is that a bunch of music controller manufacturers wanted to make something that was more expressive. So they looked at a typical black and white keyboard and they said, can we do more? Maybe we can make this as expressive as a guitar or something like that, where you can add vibrato per notes or slide notes and do interesting pitch bend stuff. And so this MIDI spec came out, which is MPE. So it still uses traditional MIDI messages. I don't know all the specifics about that spec, like how it's actually doing things under the hood, but ultimately it is just MIDI. But yeah, I mean, it lets you do some really interesting things. So in Mario's example, like before with a black and white keyboard with a pitch bend, you can only pitch bend up and down. So if you have a major chord, you can only pitch bend up to a major chord. No matter what you have your pitch bend setting to, it's just a major chord. But you can do some cool stuff where you can slide major chords into minor chords or resolve those and do some really, really interesting stuff. And also just capture more nuances from your performance. So anyway, yeah, I mean, some of the controllers that have been pushing this, like Rolly, they make the keyboard and the blocks. They're pretty big ones. There's this Harken Continuum that's like this big red thing. There's, let's see, there's the Linstrument. Sensil makes these like pads. There are all these alternative controllers to try to bring more expression to your performances. Anyway, so yeah, Live kind of like jumped on the MPE bandwagon. I think all the synth manufacturers and DAW makers are starting to incorporate this. I haven't seen like a big MIDI controller manufacturer actually make like a reasonably priced MPE controller quite yet, but I have a feeling it's coming because we've sort of reached this critical mass where it's starting to happen. But yeah, I mean, you can just do some interesting stuff. So before I get into a demo, I kind of want to reiterate, like with MPE, there's really three parts to it. So there's the controller part, which is having a MIDI controller that supports MPE. The second part is you need to have some host that actually lets you record and edit this MPE data. And then finally, you need some instrument that actually listens to MPE and does stuff with it. So if you want, you know, your MPE controller to record some synth that doesn't support MPE, you're kind of out of luck. Fortunately, in Live 11, Ableton hit all three of those. For the first one, in terms of the controller, if you have a push with Live 11, you will now have an MPE controller. So each note, each time you hit a pad, you'll end up sending pressure for that specific pad. Whereas before, you'd basically, you know, pressure or aftertouch was generally sent as a global control. So that's pretty cool. So they covered that. They also covered, you know, recording and editing MIDI. I mean, that's what I'll show off today. In Live, you now have an MPE editor. And then finally, in terms of the instruments, Live added MPE to 2 of their instruments. So they added it to Wavetable and Sampler. Specifically, like if you want to get technical, they kind of added it to like 2.5 because Simpler does support MPE, but you actually can't edit it. You can't do much with it. So like it's there. So it actually does support polyphonic pitch bend. But if you want to actually use it, you have to go into Sampler. So yeah, I mean, MPE really kind of was born out of controllers, but you don't need an MPE controller to take advantage of this stuff. As Mario's demo showed you, you can actually get some really cool effects without it. So yeah, I think that's about it from the background. Let's dive into an example. All right, cool. So let's do this. So share computer sound. All right, cool. Can everybody see my screen? Awesome. All right, cool. So I'm going to do a really quick demo. This is going to be a 4 MIDI note example, but hopefully we'll get some pretty cool variation to show you how powerful MPE can be. Okay, so I'm going to record a simple thing here. All right, so hopefully you guys caught some of the nuance of that with the Zoom audio. But if we go into here, you know, we have our typical clip view. Some things have been rearranged a little bit. The main notes actually look the exact same, but where all the magic happens is in this note expression tab. And so note expression is the E in MPE. And so we can take a look at this, and we have a few new things that are going on. In general, it looks pretty similar to the note view, but you'll notice we have some extra controls here, and we actually did record some pressure data. So as I mentioned before, push does now with Live 11 send per pad pressure, and that's exactly what we recorded here. So each one of these notes has a corresponding pressure lane that you can go in and edit and do what you want with it. So let's actually go ahead and do that now. In order to, well, actually before we do that, let's talk about some of the other options. You'll notice we have this slide channel here. Slide, so some MPE controllers actually lets you move your fingers up and down the keyboards to add another dimension to your sound. Push does not support that, which is why we don't have any data here. But that doesn't mean it's not usable. We'll come back to that in a second. Pressure is what I just reported. That's pretty cool. Down here, we have two things. One, we have velocity. Velocity actually isn't new. Velocity is the exact same thing that you see over in this note editor. In a way, velocity was already MPE, if you want to think about it that way. Velocity was set per note, whereas other things like pitch bend were set as a global parameter. So if I go here and if I edit some velocity here, and we go back into this velocity, it's also moved. So it's really just sort of redundancy to make things cohesive. And then we finally have release velocity, which is something that I think Rolly supports, this concept of lift, and it's how quickly you let go of the controller. And some synths support this, but some don't. So we're just gonna hide this for now because I frankly don't know what uses release velocity. So we'll hide this and we'll hide velocity since it's not that important. And let's talk a little bit about how you actually go in and edit. Okay, so the editor is a little weird when you first mess around with it because this is all per note. Kind of as Mari mentioned before, like you have to select the note first and then you can actually go and edit the parameters. You know, we can edit this note and this is where our actual pitch bend happened. Let's play this again. So that top note kind of has a little bit of a pitch warble thing going on. We can go in here, select the note, and we can have our typical you know, commands that we would normally do. We can use the Bezier curves to go in and kind of smooth some of this stuff out. We can go and move stuff around, and it's you know, pretty great. It's kind of what you would expect. But yeah, so let's move on to something else because you know, pressure is cool. You kind of set it up with your controller and you go, you record it, edit it, and that's that. But let's talk a little bit about slide here. So even though push doesn't support slide, that doesn't mean I can't use it to do things. So for example, if I want to take this first note, I can go in and send slide data. So we'll just kind of send it up and down and we'll see how this goes. A very sad chord. But if you could kind of hear, it's a little bit nuanced, but there was the wavetable position actually moves as we increase slide. Let's do something that's a little bit more obvious, and hopefully we can hear this a bit better. So I'm going to go in here, and like I said, this is all very standard MIDI editing stuff. And we can go in here and just delete this a whole bunch, and hopefully you guys can hear this a bit better. So now on that root note, we actually can see that we have a little bit of this vibrato thing going on. And it can actually be pretty interesting. So even if you don't have an MPE controller, this is still useful stuff because one note, this root note in this case, is actually kind of, you know, the wavetable position is moving, is changing.
Chris, can you show us the wavetable?
Sure, yeah. So if we go in here and play it. The one thing that's a little funny about it is because it's per note and you have multiple notes, the UI will only show the last note that was played. So
I was wondering how it dealt with that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like there are some weird UI things you see with this because we're like going from what's traditionally like a global parameter to a per note parameter. But it is doing stuff. So even if you don't have a controller, it doesn't mean it's not useful. So yeah, I mean, that's something that you can like take advantage of this slide parameter. Just think of it as like some random thing you want to set per note, assign that to a parameter in your synth and you're good to go. And I'll talk a little bit about how to do that in a second. Before I do that, I'm going to jump into pitch editing, which Mari already showed and is like the coolest party trick for MPE. So maybe there's some people who missed her demo or who want to take a look at this. Oh, and actually there were some questions about how to actually do this. So some nuances about how to edit it. So one of the things when you go into MPE, the MPE editor, by default, you're actually set to not having the grid on. So if you go ahead and turn, let's see, if you turn snap to grid on, you actually can go in here, select a specific note. So I'll take this minor third here, and I'll go ahead and we're now snapping to the grid. So it's kind of like once again, it's kind of a weird UI thing that takes a little bit of time to get used to, but it is there. It's just a matter of getting used to it. The other thing we can do is with the key commands, if we hit command 4, which turns snapping on and off, we can go in, and if we want to do the same thing for this fifth, we can go in and kind of like roughly estimate this and hold command. And as we move this up and down, we will snap to the grid. So let's take a look at this. We have this C minor chord, and if you want to get all music theory into it, since we moved the minor third and the fifth up a whole step, we should this should be a what is it, an F major chord. So let's listen to this. Oh. And so once again, there's like that cool MPE party trick where you can kind of impress your friends with sliding notes up and down. So yeah, I mean, it's really pretty cool. It's you can do quite a bit with it. I still think that having an MPE controller and getting everything mapped out is probably going to be like better than just editing it. But it's not something like you don't have to go out and buy some expensive MPE controller to actually take advantage of this. Cool. Well, that's it for editing. So that's sort of like that second section I talked about. Let's talk a little bit about the devices and how this whole thing works. Okay, so yeah, as Mari mentioned, Wavetable does support MPE. We also have support for Sampler. Unfortunately, Operator doesn't have any MPE support. I really hope Ableton will give us like one of those 11.5 releases that adds some of the stuff that should have come out with 11. And Operator support would be super cool. But yeah, so let's dig into this a little bit. In order to edit MPE data, you go down here into our modulation matrix. If we close this out, then we can see there's a new tab, which is MPE. Before it just had mod sources, matrix, and MIDI. But now we have MPE, which basically duplicates the velocity and the pressure columns. So those are really the same as they were before. The big difference is, do you have polyphonic pressure, per note pressure, or do you just have aftertouch, which is like, global pressure, which I think just takes the maximum. But we do have two new columns, which is note pitch bend. So that's the thing that actually makes, if we set this to 0, you wouldn't see that cool modulation that happened when we did it with the editor. It wouldn't just do anything, but you can actually assign that to other stuff. So with note pitch bend, you could also have that open up a filter or something like that. I mean, we can get a little crazy with this, and we can go ahead and like, I don't know, we can change other things. We can change like have pressure do more stuff, or we can have slide do an interesting thing. So I mean, we can do some cool stuff with it. It definitely, it's really fun to play with. It really gives you a lot of sound design stuff to mess around with, and yeah, like I think you said, it's pretty straightforward to actually go in and edit this stuff. Let's see, a couple other notes. This MPE control is actually a really useful device. That's something that's new that Live added, or Ableton added. It's a Max for Live device, but it works really well. And one of the things I found, especially using pressure with the Ableton push, is that you may not want pressure to kick in right away. So by changing the curve, you can kind of like mess around with this, where only at the top values of your pressure are you really doing anything. This can help save you some headaches with like the pressure just not doing exactly what you want. So this is a really good one to know. Another cool thing about it is, as you play, you can actually which show you the
Chris,
pressure. Yo.
Can you repeat what you said while you were holding down the chord? Because we heard the chord and not so much your voice.
Sure, sorry.
What was going on?
This whole Zoom presenting thing is a whole new world to me.
I know, it's annoying, but
yeah, let me reiterate, let me say that again. So when with the MPE control thing, even if you don't want to change the curve response for the data, you can still use it to visualize your MPE movements. So if I go and if I play 2 notes on my push and I kind of rock my hand back and forth to put pressure on 2 different pads, you'll see 2 dots that'll kind of go through that pad. And it really just helps you see what's going on, like what am I actually sending out of this device. But yeah, I mean, overall MP is really cool. You really can add a bunch of cool stuff to your music. Um, yeah, anybody have any questions? Let me go into this chat real quick and see if there's been anything new.
That was awesome. I've been monitoring chat for you too.
Oh, cool. Right on.
Someone
Is
asked
there,
about
let's,
assigning the parameters, but you covered that.
okay, cool. Yeah, anything else?
So that MPE control will let you create or shape the interpolation. Is that right?
Yeah, so basically what this will do is instead of having, say my pressure was valued like, when one of the interesting things about pressure, right, is that like when you hit a note, you have to apply some pressure for it to actually go down. So pressure is a funny one because by default, depending on your sensitivity settings, like on your push or whatever your controller is, you can already start out at like 50, which makes it hard to get really smooth movements. Because like as soon as you hit your note, you're already at pressure, like you've already increased the amount of pressure that you added on that note. So by doing a curve like this, 50 ends up putting out a pressure of like, I don't know, 10 or whatever that curve is. So it lets you kind of shape the results a bit, which I think is pretty important with MPE because MPE is all about expressive playing. And if your controller is doing things and like making your filter cutoff go all crazy, it gets a little difficult. So you can use these curves to help tame the data that's getting sent per note and just have more control of it.
Cool.
Cool. Any other questions or anything else about MPE? Cool. Well, I guess like I can leave like just with a few parting thoughts. I really didn't mess with MP too much until Live 11 came out, and I definitely see the benefits of it. I think especially if you want to add some humanization to your music, this is a really great way to go. I feel like everybody's trying to do that. Like computers are great at making things sound the same, but this really just gives you another option or another tool to create some stuff that that just sounds more human. And then outside of that, I think that there's some interesting places where this can go. So like by default, MPE is per note, but the synthesizer has to support that. So like Wavetable actually has to support that. And right now, one of the things I'd really love to see is right now, if you add effects at the end of a synthesizer, like a reverb or something, MP doesn't help you because your reverb is applied globally. It's applied to all the sound that's coming out of that synthesizer. But I'd really love to see people making synthesizers like with per note reverbs. So then you can actually change like the amount of dry wet for a reverb like per note, which would be really cool. So I think that there's some interesting places where this can go. I'm sure somebody's done something somewhere and I just don't know about it. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the future with this.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
Sure, thank you.
Super cool. Sorry for giving away your pitch bending trick early.
It's like the
Totally my bad.
No, don't worry about it.
Because I totally fell for the party trick from like Ableton's Instagram. I was like, what?
It's like one of the coolest things. And like really that's worth MPE alone. I mean like pressure and velocity are fine. And if you have these like fancy controllers and want to like turn Ableton into like a classical instrument, that's great. But even just being able to pitch bend and like modulate chords and have them resolve is fucking amazing. So
Cool. So I just want to answer one question from Doug about Push 2.
Oh yeah.
So Push 2 updates. Obviously, the new devices are going to work on Push when it comes out, like the hybrid reverb and stuff. You'll get to see up to 16 macros. There's not a ton for Push. You'll get to see up to 16 macros since now we can add up to 16 macros. It will sync the scale to your MIDI. To like how I showed how you could pick the scale in your MIDI clip. So it'll sync to the scale, and then just MPE, the aftertouch or pressure. I think that's it. I don't know if you saw Chris, but Yuda's here and said hi.
Oh, hey Yuda.
Okay, sweet. That is really cool, and I'm excited about new affordable controllers coming for that stuff for sure. Okay, so I think like just take a quick bathroom break if you need to, and then Lillian, you're good to go, and then maybe we'll talk about the challenges at the end. How's that? And is that okay? Okay, cool. Sweet. Are you good to go, Lillian? Okay, cool. So I'm just going to take a second because I personally have...
I'll rejoin on my computer. Actually,
Great.
Yeah, let me in on my computer.
Okay, I will. break time. There we go. Let her in. All right. You a little mind blown, Alina? I saw your comment in the chat.
Oh my God, you have no idea. I mean, seriously, I've only been using Ableton for maybe, like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah,
It is
barely
quite
scratched the surface.
Quite a deep hole to go down.
Seriously, like if I can alter just each note and each sound separately like that, it's really overwhelming for me to think about it right now. But I do what I can, and I educate myself as much as I can through, YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. And like the lynda.com, they have like an extensive course
Yuda's
there
a
about
featured
Ableton.
teacher on Lynda a little bit. Aren't you on Lynda, Yuda? I think he is. One of someone who's here on the call named Yuda, he's also a teacher, and he has some videos, I think, on Lynda.
I was just private messaging him because I grew up in Israel, and he has such an Israeli name. So hi, Yuda.
Yes. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I hope you can hear me okay. I'm on the road here.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Javad also says hi. We're just coming back from a bike ride.
Yo!
We're in the car. So
what's
hello
up,
everyone.
Javad?
Alina, that's so cool, by the way. That's so cool.
So yeah, just taking it in one step at a time. That's all I can do right now.
Cool. So Lillian, I will monitor chat for you, and then when questions come in that are relevant to whatever you're doing at the moment, I will try to make sure they get to you.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Mari.
Yeah. All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right, let's cruise. Sup, fam? So stoked to be here, sharing some projects with y'all. Pressure's on now that I know Yuda's on the call. He's my teacher, so I'm pretty excited for this, y'all. So I love...
Pressure is on. Pressure is on, Lillian.
Yeah, thank you. That MPE pressure. All right. So anyways, I'm obsessed with Ableton for a number of reasons, but one of them being it is so individual. Like your projects probably look so different from my projects, and I think it is the most fun to pop inside other people's projects and be like, how are you using your effects? How are you, creating your instruments, all this stuff. So we are going to open up one of my newer projects. I'm going to listen through it all the way through and hope that stereo is working. I might do a little sound check at the beginning, Mari. And then I would love it if you guys kind of listen to it in an active listening perspective and see if you can track some of the automation changes. Because something I'm really going to be diving into is how we use automation to create movement and anticipation and release in our tracks. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. All right, and Mari, you're going to tell me if my stereo is working.
No.
No, it wouldn't dare. at a
do
time
you
like
have do you have the original sound thing on?
I do. Let me try that one more time. Share computer.
We had it working, so we'll get it working.
And my original sound is turned on. Turn off original sound. Turn on original sound. I'm just gonna share it again. And share computer sound. All right, let's see if this works. Right, left.
No, I'm still getting them together.
You have
Why
your
is
original sound on,
that?
Mari?
Maybe that's why. Go ahead.
No, I think.
No, that made no difference.
Right.
Why would that make a difference? Let me see your.
Oh, girl, I don't have loop back.
I was gonna say, can you check your loop back settings?
Guys, so y'all, here's the thing with loopback is I haven't purchased it yet, so this is
right.
so every 20 minutes I have to open and then close it. All right, loopback is open. All right, I'm going to stop share and just do this one more time. The joys of computer.
Running trial version.
All right, now let's see if this works.
Yeah. There we go.
I love the sound of that, fam. Okay, we are going to take a listen all the way through, and I'm just going to kind of poke around. I hope you enjoy. Awesome. Fuck yeah. All right, so that is the track. Thank you guys so much. Very sweet in the chat, guys. Thank you so much. So the first thing I'm going to acknowledge is what the fuck is she doing with her groups? All right, so I have my tracks all grouped into, I guess, 3 different groupings here. Not Fox, Vox and Ab Vox, and that's for Abby, the other woman who was singing on this song. And so I separate these all out because I'm sidechaining my vocals to my not vocals. So you see that my sidechain compressors are picking up my verse, my chorus, and my Abby vocals. So every time my vocals come in, it's going to dip out of the compressor a little bit. The compressor is going to dip it out of everything else. So if we look at this, it's just pulling out a little bit with my vocals, and that's because in my music that I'm creating, it might be different from yours, but my vocals are the main piece, and so I want to make sure they are always front and center. So this is one of the ways I achieve this. All right, let's open up these not Vox and see what's happening. I organize my tracks into drums, bass, MIDI, my synths, and then my audio fuckery, and then I have my vocal separated. So let's dive into the drums first. I just have like a pretty casual kick sound here. And also notice I do have my verse drums and chorus drums separate. I'm using mostly MIDI for my verse drums, and then I'm actually doing mostly audio for my chorus drums. And my chorus drums are just like a little bit heavier hitting because this is kind of in the future-based style, so I really want that smack in chorus. So anyways, I have a pretty chill kick sound here, but then I think my snare is pretty interesting. What I'm doing here is I have my delay automating. So let's look at the automation here and just solo this out. Just kind of doing some weird stuff. You can tell, especially on the second verse. It has kind of its own rhythm happening as it's changing. You're going to notice a lot of parallel processing happening in my tracks. And that is because I like to process my dry signal and my wet signals differently for a lot of different reasons. So for example, on the snare, I have my dry chain, and then I have my reverb chain, but on my reverb, I want to put a sidechain compression that is getting audio from my kick. And so it's ducking the audio of the reverb whenever the kick comes in, because I don't want that reverb tail from my snare interfering with my kick, right? So I got that, and then I have to use some utility to really spread the reverb of my snare. And then I have also just a separate filter, because I want this to be filtered out more than my dry signal. And then for saturation, I just have my saturation that I can pull up and down, and then my delay that I also just pull in using the volume knob. If you don't know how to make a parallel chain, all you have to do is hit Command G on any device, and it's automatically going to create an effect rack, and then you can open it up and add new chains by holding down Option and dragging down. So you're going to be seeing a lot of that. All right, Command Z. All right, next I'm going to move on to the hi-hats and just point out a couple interesting like movement techniques in the hi-hat. I'm going to have to unfreeze these as I go because it's a pretty girthy project, as you've noticed, so I have a lot of frozen tracks here. But something that we're doing with the hi-hats in this case is one, I have a couple auto filters all shifting. So if you look at the frequency of my auto filters, they are slowly opening up over time. You see that filter and also this filter, which I think comes in a little bit later. That's creating like a ramp up here, as well as this gain automation going up. So it's just creating this like anticipation for what's to come. And then I also have 3 different hi-hats, so it's just all like a little bit different happening. And you'll see that each one of these hi-hats, if I open them up and I go inside, they're all going to be panned differently. So one of them is panned to the left, and this is a super, super useful knob right here, the random pan. So I have this at 30% random. So it'll be on the left, but it's going to kind of be in a different place every time on the left side. And then I also have my hi-hat on the right that's kind of doing some random pan, so a different place on the right side every time. And then my other hi-hat is at 100% random down the center. So that's just kind of like flailing about all the time. So that's one like thing to keep more interest, but then I also have the transposition knobs. So within my simpler, I have my transposition that is mapped to a macro. So I have each one of these hi-hats just going up in transposition. So you can hear that now. Bringing it up. Cool. All right, I'm going to undo, refreeze that. Oh, and then this is also sidechain compressing to the kick. So when the kicks come in, the hi-hats take a seat, let the kick do its thing. And then I have this metal percussion that's doing a lot of the same stuff. Everything's panned out to a different place, so you can see it's really kind of wrapping around your head. All right, now we have a couple loops here. You can see like this loop is kind of chilling, add in just like a nice groove. And then it's going to get really fast here. You'll see I just doubled the tempo. There we go. All right, and then I have this like guerrilla marching here. And it starts out kind of like thudding. And that's because I have this high cut filter all the way down, but you're going to see that it starts to open up as we keep going. So it turns from like a heartbeat to be more like gorillas marching or like a little stampede of animals. And this is a sick loop. I got this, I believe it was in the core library as an Ableton clip, and you can just drag and drop it in, and it came with all these delicious effects and devices over here that were really easy to just automate. So I also did some automation on the distortion here so we can hear that kind of open up as we're getting towards the chorus. Especially in this whole part here, I'm going to keep coming back to a lot of automation because this is where I think it's called chill melody, and it turns into my third chorus, right? So there's just like a lot of building and a lot of shifting that's going on here. All right, one of my favorite parts of this, I wonder if anybody heard this. You have to
Lillian,
tell.
We've got a question.
Okay, what's the cue?
Do you ever convert to audio when you're finished, or is this version you're showing meant for live performance, for release, or both?
Ooh, great cue. This is not my live performance. I'll do a separate, I'll balance everything out. I'll figure out what are my instruments that I want to play live, and then I'll probably create an instrument rack with those and use that for live, and then bounce out the stems. I don't really convert into audio, especially if I want to use these instruments for live. I'm going to want the actual MIDI instrument and not the audio. Yeah, I do have to work my vocals, like record my vocals in a separate, record and process my vocals in a separate project because this is too big. And if I were trying to like put pitch correction on 100 vocal takes, Ableton would hate me. All right, cool. I hope that answered your question. So something that I'm pretty proud of here, and you have to tell me if you heard it the first time around, but I got a fireworks sample. This is called Fireworks Big Sound, 4th of July in Texas. So you know it's real. Let's listen to this. That's pretty, okay, you can hear it. It's kind of soft. But anyways, at the third chorus, the fireworks actually go off. You hear the boom, and that's layered with the kick to really make this explosion. And then also, fireworks have this sick, like, shoo sound that sounds really cool layered in. So I'm just going to play this with maybe my chorus drums. Yeah, and maybe this is a good time to just tell you guys a little bit about the story behind this song. So I started this in May, and it was kind of like a very lonely time in the quarantine. And this song is my imagination going wild and imagining being in this like beautiful romantic relationship and falling in love for the first time. So the chorus is, let me know if it's working. Like, is my charm working on you? Like, is this working? And then let me know, can you see straight? So like imagining just being like super taken aback by someone that you can like barely contain yourself. And so having the fireworks in the third chorus is kind of like that, like when fireworks go off with someone. So I was excited to be able to actually incorporate that into the track. And then I have the chorus drums here, which are Pretty cool. I also got to give a shout out to Yuta because he has a masterclass on future bass, like an online virtual masterclass. I highly recommend it. And I was watching that future bass masterclass as I was figuring out what to do with this song. So it was very informative for me. So anyways,
we got another cue, Lil.
Yeah, what's up?
Can you tell us about the jumpy arpeggiated keyboard part that happens here around bar 90?
Ooh, okay, someone is doing their active listening. I love that. The jumpy arpeggiated part. Is that what they said?
Yeah, around bar 90.
Around bar 90. Can whoever asked that come on?
Kurt.
Maybe it wasn't arpeggiated. I don't know. I just like kind of made a note when we were listening through.
Ooh,
really cool.
I wonder what it was. Did it have to do with the drums?
It was kind of along with the main melody, like.
Okay, fuck yeah.
Jumping around a bunch.
When I get to the synths, hopefully it'll stand out. But if it doesn't, then ping me and be like, "Where was that thing?"
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Hell yeah. All right, so we got just a typical kick, snare. I will just solo these and kind of let it play out. Kick, snare, some reverse crashes. I want that guy. 2 crashes, 1 pan left, 1 pan to the right. Snare fills. And I got these hi-hats. I have 3 different hi-hats, 2 closed hi-hats that are auto panning at a rate of 2 bars and 1 bars respectively. So they're kind of just going back and forth around your head. And then open hats panning at 4 bars. So anyways, all these 3 together are kind of like a constantly shifting hi-hat party around you. And obviously this is sidechained to the kick. I'm proud of these toms too. Oh, you can't hear them. Yeah. All right, cool. So that's kind of the drum situation. Any cues about the drums before I move on to the bass? Word. Okay, I got.
We got just one. Are the toms gated?
Ooh, no.
Just clean.
Just clean. Yeah, they're so fresh and so clean. So the bass is kind of cool because it only comes in at the chorus, which I appreciate. That the rest of the song, I feel like song is kind of like Sufjan Stevens meets Flume, where it's like V chill and like some like weird chord progressions, and then like also very big on the chorus. So I only bring in bass during our chorus. And if we, I just have a super sub bass called Yuta sub because this was part of Yuta's masterclass. He gave us a sub, so thanks, Yuta. And that's just a sweet wavetable. And then I also have this higher bass, which is a sample with some saturation, Camel Crusher. Camel Crusher is dope. It's a free saturation/distortion plugin. I see Kate nodding. She knows what's good. Camel Crusher, let's go. I put this on everything. So anyways, you can just kind of hear how those two are working together. Pretty simple little bass situation happening here. All right, here's some fun part, the synths. So the whole part of future bass is having these like huge, wide, super like detuned saw waves. You know, it's like a thick sound, but also like thin in a way that it's like airy. It's like thick and airy at the same time. So I have like 10 different synths all happening at the same time here. I have like a grand piano, future bass chords, noise being automated, more future bass, some brass ensemble, strings, and some staccato strings. By the way, this brass ensemble, strings ensemble, and the staccato ensemble, these are all part of your core library. If not core library, then no, they're part of the orchestral pack. I love these sounds, so hit them up. I have like a little choir here. Mellotron. And then I'm wondering if the arpeggiation, Kurt, you're talking about could be possibly this.
Yep, that's it.
Wow, incredible
Is it a crystallizer or something? Or-
listening skills. So this is another Yuta future bass synth guy here. And what it is just a wavetable with a little bit of like filtering and oscillator position, like shaping and movement. And then we have a little bit of auto pan on it, some overdrive, some 16th note delay in the echo, and some OTT. And obviously the arpeggiation here is 16th notes. So yeah, that's a good one for sure.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So something I will point out is the pattern, right, of the drops when it comes in. So let's look at what I'm doing to the automation on this. It just drop synths. That's what I called it. These are all the synths that come in the drop. So the first drop, what I'm doing is I'm using an auto pan to just to create that, like, you know, that future bassy, like, wobbly effect. So I just have my phase at 360. Oh, I have to close loop back and open it back up again. Just a second, fam. All right, cool. I should be working now. I'm never going to buy this thing. All right. So the first drop, let's listen to it and you can see. Let's open up my automation here. And you can see in here what's happening with the automation of just the rate here. Excellent. So that was the first time around, and then I switched it up a little bit in the second time. So I don't know if you noticed this, but in my drums, I have a, under chorus drums, I have a ghost kick right here. So this is a ghost kick that's not turned on. However, it is being used to trigger a gate in my drop synths group, right? So typically when we have a gate, it only lets sound over a certain volume, over a threshold, actually be heard. But I can say, using my sidechain, yo, Ableton, what's up? Thank you for all that you do. Can you please listen to the audio coming from my ghost kick channel? And whenever that passes the threshold, then I want you to let in my synths. So now we have a little bit more of like a bounce almost, kind of like like synths on a trampoline. So let's listen to this. Switch over. Excellent. And then the third time, for the first half of the chorus, I don't use any kind of like wobbly do. It's just like boom. So let's listen to this one real quick. And then the auto pan starts to come in for the second part. Now, I have not enough time to go over every single synth individually, but I will say that there's a lot of automation in every synth track. So like, for example, I think on the strings ensemble, let's unfreeze this and just looking real quick, you can see that I'm automating the width. So in this like build up here, it's getting wider. And then I also have the frequency opening up here, which you can hear like that. I also have a second auto filter that's going to be pulling it all in. And then I have this filter tilter, which is another Yuta device. And I love this. What it does is it takes the morph notch, or sorry, not the morph notch, just the morph, like, whatever, filter, whatever, this little thing. What is the word, Mari?
I I'm actually not sure because it's not really a shape, just the morph option.
Yeah, okay, we're in the morph option, and you can use this little morph knob here to go between our low pass, our band pass, our high pass. You'll see it kind of like just noodling around really easy. And then at the end, it's doing that little thing. So highly recommend using morph and automating that to just make so much cool movement, especially right before a drop.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
All right, this one's from Alina. She says, how do you choose your sounds? Like for the drop, for example, do you design most of the sounds?
Oh, good cue. So the sounds, man, these kind of happen. Some of them I design myself. Some of them I get like from, like in this case, a lot of them came from Yuta's pack that he shared with me. So that was awesome. I think the choir here is a sampler that uses. Let me unfreeze this and open it up. This is like a little piece of audio from a sample. So I don't know how I choose my sounds. It's different every time. But there's actually a really cool instrument that I would love to show you now. Ooh, okay, wait. If we're talking about instruments, I got to show you the OG, the main tones instrument. This is the guy that you're hearing the entire time. So let's actually open this up and listen to this. What this is just a really simple wavetable, but it's constantly evolving. So you'll see that I am, show automation. I'm moving the positioning of the wavetable throughout the entire song. So it's just changing up a little bit and kind of keeping that intrigue. And then I also have, what else is shifting? The auto filter is also coming back and forth on this, as well as the arpeggiation. Sometimes it's like off in this case, but then it comes on in a later section in here. And as this is happening, we can look at the auto pan and see that it's shifting from one side to the other and kind of creating this stereo width. So I do like this sound a lot because I was able to get a lot of different textures and tones and movement just by using one wavetable and playing around with all the different ways you can use it. Another cool instrument is this tangy cello that you hear at the beginning. So let's give this guy a listen. And, oh, that actually had some of its... There you go. That has more reverb on it now. But how this came to be is, if you can't tell already, this was audio, and then I sliced it to a drum rack. And if I look through these little slices here, you'll see that they're all just different slices of the same sample. So if I go into my browser to find this sample, I can actually pull it out and show you guys what it started as, which is this little guy. Let's listen to it. This is my friend Natalie Hagwood playing. She's incredible. And this is a sample from my song Rain Check Summer that I brought in, and I just right-clicked, and you got to make sure it's warped. And then you can right-click, slice to new MIDI track, and then it allows you to select where you want to slice. So I asked it to select please, or slice it please at the transients, and then it turns it into this sweet little drum rack here. And I went through it, and I'm like, okay, I like this sound, and this sound, and this sound. And then I just transposed them to make sure they fit with my song. And then I added a lot of reverb and stuff. If you listen to it without any audio effects, it sounds like this. Not very fun, but let's throw on some reverb, some grain delay, and some compression, even more pitched reverb. And now we got some sweet space happening. All right, I know I'm super short on time, but there's one more thing I really do want to show you guys before closing up this project. One of my favorite sound design techniques is resampling delay in repitch mode. So you can hear this, in the final chorus, there's this kind of like bling bling happening in the background. And let's listen to this, and then I'm going to pull in the fireworks so you can hear it at the same time. Mm. Oh, and then it stopped playing. I wonder what stopped playing there. But anyways, all together, see if you can hear this little bling. And the way that you do this is, I think I took the main tones, this like main OG lullaby. This is probably it. So I take just like a sample that I like. Love that. I'm going to create a new audio track to resample my information into. So I'm just going to arm this, hit resample, and then I'm going to throw a delay onto my, oh, it's frozen. Let me unfreeze this guy. Throw on a delay, and then in repitch mode, as you change the sync of the delay, it will repitch it. And so I put it on 100% wet, and then I can just press record, and then you'll see that when I switch around from different sync, like whatever levels, you get some really cool stuff. Whenever I can let my computer do the work, I will. It's like what Andrew was saying earlier. It's like collaborating with your computer. Yeah, when I'm out of ideas, I'm like, all right, Ableton, let me know what's good. So then after that, I just listen to it, and I can just peel apart what parts I like. Like that. That's sick. So I would grab that and then have that make its way into another song or different section or whatever. Cool. I think, and then I just have my vocals at the end. But that's kind of, yeah, that's a little overview. I hope that you found that interesting or inspiring, or that you learned something new. I sure had fun explaining to you kind of what was going on behind the scenes. Also, just if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up after this. I'm on Instagram. I will drop my my info in the chat if I can ever find the chat box again. You could also hit me
I'll
up.
stop your sharing.
Okay, perfect.
Then you should be able to find it.
Cool. Yeah, so I will throw that in, and yeah, feel free to reach out to me. And I also do private classes, so if you wanted to link up and kind of dive more into some of the stuff I was doing, I would be happy to do that with y'all. So, yeah.
Yay, huge round of applause for Lillian. Sort of a weird Zoom applause, but you know. Thank you so much for doing this for us. I really appreciate it. Does anyone have any last questions for Lillian? I'm just gonna wait because people type. A lot of people are saying thank you. Sweet.
Thanks,
Well, Andrew, do you want to mention your idea for challenges, and then if any questions come up, I can ask them. Oh, does she teach privates? yeah, Lillian. Lillian, are you teaching privates these days?
I really sure do. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'll drop my email, and please shoot me an email and we can chit chat.
All right. Oh, sorry. That was totally me. I ended your sharing by accident.
That's okay.
Dude,
Let's see here.
Go back.
Let's see. Trying to get, oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so we're gonna start doing some weekly beat challenges with a platform called Flipgrid. And I just wanted to sort of show a little demo video of how it works and to try to get everybody excited. Basically, we're gonna work together to create like a really short tutorial, maybe like 10 minutes tops, and then everyone, I'm hoping, will chip in and make a little something, spend a small amount of time or as much time as you want, record it to a video and share it with the group, and so we can get this like feedback cycle going and start turning these user groups more into creative workshops, and less about like listening to people with like decades of musical experience talk about uh, all these like crazy detailed things that are probably meaningless to you. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and you can take a look at what Flipgrid is, which is the platform for these new challenges. Hot pepper. Essentially, we're going to use this platform to start making little projects together every week, and it'll be really exciting, that a way for us to see what you're making and answer your questions, and also to just give each other feedback, and also have an archive of things that we've created as a user group together. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how we might like create a prompt, and you can respond with your video to the tutorial or the challenge that we're going to create. So I'm still working to put together the first challenge, and we should announce it in the next week or two. So keep your eyes peeled on the Facebook group, and we'll also try to email folks that we know are interested, and hopefully we can start creating more together. So that's the main idea.
Sweet. Looking forward to that. That's going to be cool. I've never used Flipgrid. Looks fun. Natalie says her kids use it in school, so that's cool. Nice. All right. Alina is so down. Hell yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that's all for today. I'll try to organize another one fairly soon. Maybe we'll try for like every other month. I'm not really sure what. Every month might be a lot, but maybe we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll start with every other month. We'll see how people are feeling, and we'll try to get some cool guests in here from time to time. And yeah, I appreciate y'all showing up. And Lillian, thank you again. And Chris and Andrew, thank you also for your presentations. And is there a way to get on an email list since I quit FB? Oh, interesting. We don't have an email group for this. Okay, let me think about that. Maybe that would be something we could do.
Drop your email in the chat right now, and I'll add it to a list, because I think we will have to send out invite codes, so we'll probably have to do some work. It's so I obviously we want the group to be public, but I think that there's some security and privacy management that we have to maintain. So I think that might mean getting everybody an invite. Awesome.
We got some here. I'll post our Facebook group. It's the Seattle Seattle Ableton User Group. I'm going to just post our group in the chat as well. There we go. So if you're not in that group, go ahead and join, and you can stay in touch with us. So
And you don't have to be on Facebook to use it, because this is a separate platform.
for the challenges, yeah.
Yeah, and so what happens is whenever we post a prompt, you should get an email that says, "Hey, there's a new prompt for you to check out," and you can come and interact and respond with it.
Awesome. All right. Any parting words? So I think Andrew and Chris, I don't think are doing privates these days. I also teach. Lillian teaches. Hit us up if you have questions between now and the next meeting. We're happy to help. If you're interested, I organize a women's meetup too for female non-binary trans music producers. Hit me up afterwards. I'll put my email in the chat too. And if you're interested in any of those things, feel free to contact me. But yeah, let's keep making music. Enjoy the holidays. Hopefully you're inspired to make some future-based bangers like Lillian. I know I am. And yeah, take care, everybody.
Thank you, Mari.
Thanks, Mari.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mari.
Thank you.
It was great listening to everyone.
Thanks. Thank
Cool.
you, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
You
I'll put
too.
the video in the group too, in the Facebook group and on YouTube. All right.
Nice.